So, Tom, I thank you. I'm honored by your presence. I'm excited to just have the potential to follow in your footsteps as a leader down there in Congress. And these are remarkably challenging times, to be sure. You know, what it was, 8.5 million. Now, I wish that was the dollars we'd raised thus far in this campaign. Probably is about the budget we're going to have to meet to compete in this TV market. But unfortunately, 8.5 million is the number of people that have lost their jobs just since the beginning of this administration. And that is what this is all about, more than any other issue that we have. 5 of the last 6 cycles, the gross domestic product actually in decline. There is no more important issue to us and to America than getting ourselves back into a sound economic situation and putting people back to work. As I go about and I talk to people, you can see the impact this is having on people's lives. It's quiet. They're not out in front talking about it. But it's the 45, 50-year-old man who's worked 20 years in a company and has been let go and is now beginning to say, where do I go with the rest of my life? It's the kids who have taken on college loans and even graduate school loans and are coming out of the top universities in the country and can't even find a starting job. These are great challenges for us. Now, there are solutions we've got to work. You know, small business, we put a lot out about this. 70% of the jobs are created by small business. That's where I think we've got to focus. We've got to take advantage of the resources we have that Tom used to attract here to the state, our great industries that are allowed us to do our innovation, to keep us competitive globally. But just the other day, talking with folks, the counterintuitive nature of what we just did last week in Washington, D.C., where some of our leading companies, pharmaceutical, biotechnology, groups like this, taking on this unique tax hit that's going to create the loss of jobs. Small business people, I talked to a half a dozen people here tonight who have been significantly impacted by just the requirement that's being put on them from Washington because of this bill that was just recently passed. It will make profitable businesses that no longer can meet the bottom line. At a time when we are looking at such a challenging economy, it just doesn't make sense. And that's in the context of today. As we look down the road and we anticipate what we're seeing, not just a couple of years, but at the end of the decade and further on, it's staggering. Debt that will have tripled by the end of the decade, tripled to over $10 trillion. That's going to be $850 billion a year just in interest on the national debt. And do you appreciate that, except for the cost of defense, do you know what our current discretionary spending is in the United States? Just about $850 billion. That's the money that we're going to need for investment into education and infrastructure and research and development. We are now competing globally with India and China, and we are putting a millstone around the necks of our country. But more significantly, the thing that inspires me more than any other factor to want to be there with you shoulder to shoulder to go fight this battle is the idea that the children that I have, that some of you have, the grandchildren, are going to be paying this bill on the credit card that's being run up. And it is simply not sustainable. And a whole new entitlement program, as valid as the interest is, and we as a nation should be finding a way to make sure that everybody has a safety net in health care, but not at this moment at the expense of a future generation in a world in which we've got to compete. And lastly, and I think the point couldn't be driven home any better than with the presence of the former Homeland Security Director, we live in a very dangerous world and continue to do so. A concept, I'm very proud to have watched what happened. You know, we're seeing the president and He's our president, and we just ought not to be taking shots constantly. It was great to see a little bit of movement and some negotiations with Russia and the reduction of nuclear arms, but the concept of a nuclear Iran is something that we as a nation and as a world just simply can't tolerate. And here within the United States, something that the director and I used to work on side by side directly, the concept that you would take a murderer like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and bring him in to the American criminal justice system and give him the full panoply of constitutional rights. Now, it doesn't mean that there isn't a place and an appropriate place for our courts to accommodate some of this, but we've got to be clear, we've got to get a better standard. Ultimately, we can't be afraid to stand up behind and have confidence in the system we have. The military tribunals were fixed by Congress. They can be an appropriate forum. We do not have to apologize to France. We have to send a message to America that our first objective is to protect you. I just want to tell you how enthused I am about this. But it's for all the reasons and many more that I just articulated. This is not Pat Meehan's election. This is our election. This is our opportunity to regain our voice. I will say that I had a chance, and Tom will probably tell me to be about the last chance, but I went in and I sat with John Boehner, and he had just come from the White House. And this was some months ago. And I asked him, I said, Leader, when you're in there, how much real dialogue do you have with the president? And he looked at me and he said, 0. They don't need us. They don't need us. Look, neither party has all of the solutions. We can't say that it's all the Republican way or all the Democrat way. But the fact of the matter is, the greatest moments of economic prosperity in the United States have been when we've had Reagan and we had Tip O'Neill, when we had Clinton and we had Newt Gingrich. The point being, we were compelled to work together. We've got to win the House back, to put us back into a position, and it begins right here. I'll close my comments by saying this will be ground zero. The thing that should be exciting, because if you got the ball, you want the ball in the game that's going to be the Super Bowl game or the championship game. I want us to be in this race. But this is a top 10 race in the United States, and there's a very good reason for it. Because as goes the 7th District, southeastern Pennsylvania goes. And as southeastern Pennsylvania goes, as the governor knows, so goes the state of Pennsylvania. And for every election since I've been in this business, as goes Pennsylvania, so goes the presidency. 2010, 2012, redistricting with the legislature at stake, this will be ground zero. And my opponents already had Nancy Pelosi wrap her arms around them and say, I'm coming right in. So we are going to be on the line. That should make us excited, it should make us motivated, but it has to make us committed to win. By your being here today, you help us begin that. I want to say thank you. This is a room full of pros. Nobody here has probably been to a fundraiser for the first time, so I know it's not easy. But it can't be any more important than now. I can't tell you how grateful I am to each and every one of you for your support and your encouragement, but most importantly, your partnership in this great challenge that we have together. I want my kids to not have to say that we were the last generation in America that could aspire to do better than their parents. That's the American way. That's the America we have to continue to cultivate and to build. Thank you. Thanks to everybody.